Welcome back to the Banderpod, the aesthetic and appealing podcast of Bandersnatch Books. We are a small press publisher of treasures found off the beaten path for lovers of all that is good, true, and beautiful. I'm Carolyn Claire Gibbons, and today I'm talking with Carolyn Leiloglou about art and looking to art as an inspiration for new stories. So Carolyn, welcome to the Banderpod.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk to you today.
It's so great. Carolyn is a longtime friend. I truly have no recollection when we met. And
Definitely at a hutch moot.
Probably at a hutch moot. And we've interacted in the world of books for many years, and I've loved watching your writing over the years and reading your books. And so first off, just tell us a little bit about who you are and your background and all that jazz. Introduce yourself.
All right. So, again, like you said, I'm Carolyn Leiloglou. I'm from San Antonio, Texas. I live here with my husband, and I've got 4 kids who I have homeschooled. 2 I'm no longer homeschooling because they are in college, both pursuing a creative career. So I like to say I have 4 wildly creative kids, and that does kind of feed into what I do. My books are all art related, and that's because I grew up the daughter of an art teacher and granddaughter of art collectors. So art was always a big part of my life. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about that series because you do have the third book in your Restorationist series released in September. And so give me kind of just a quick, what is this series about? And then we'll dive into it a little bit further.
So, The Restorationist takes place in a world like ours, except that art is powerful, paintings are portals, and one family has been tasked with protecting them. So, the series kicks off with Beneath the Swirling Sky, which follows Vincent. He is a 12-year-old kid who has given up on art after a bad experience, and then learns his family are the last restorationists and have the ability to travel into paintings and the duty to protect them. So, when his little sister disappears into Van Gogh's The Starry Night, he and his cousin Georgia are the only ones who can rescue her. So it's got a lot of adventure. All the art they visit is real art, and it's listed in the back of each book. And it's got some moments of faith as well that kind of hinge with the art pieces.
Yeah. Oh, it's such a great series. And I don't know. I remember reading the first book and thinking, in some ways, it feels almost familiar. Like it feels like the right way to enter art, like as if this could really happen, like you could
Yeah.
enter into a painting. I don't know. I think it's just because you built it so realistically. It so naturally comes out of the world in which you've created. So before we get into talking in more detail about the 3 books, tell me a little bit about the inspiration for this series and where that came from and all of that.
So there's a couple of different things that play into this. The first one, like I said, my grandparents were art collectors, and they had their house was just stuffed with art. They had paintings on every wall, and then in their creepy upstairs, they had a room that just had like stacks of paintings leaning against the wall. So anyone who's read the first book realized that the adventure kicks off in a room just like that. And so that was one inspiration. But I think you're referencing the fact that at my first Hutchmoot, I went to Russ Ramsey's talk about Van Gogh and about the only painting that he sold. I just remember, I hadn't had the idea for that book. I hadn't really had much success in writing so far at that time. And his talks at every Hutchmoot kind of reawakened my appreciation for art. Like I said, I'd grown up around a lot of art, but I'm not a visual artist myself, so maybe hadn't like kept that up all that much. But I think those 2 things combined in my head to be like, like what would a world look like where kids could travel into art? Like I'd seen a couple picture books, like Katie and the Impressionist, Katie and the Sunflowers, where a kid goes into paintings, but I'd never, like you said, seen it done in middle grade. I'd seen kids go into books or bring characters out of books, not paintings, and they just wanted it to be an adventure. And so that's kind of where the whole idea sprang from. And I actually got to brainstorm the idea at a Hutchmoot when Gillian Bronte Adams did her first brainstorming session that you could talk to people. And so, yeah, that's what it dates back to.
Yeah. For the listeners who don't know, Russ Ramsey is a pastor and an author. We've probably mentioned him on our podcast before because we love him. But he has several books out now of long essays. I mean, they're substantial pieces about particular pieces of art or particular artists. And he tells kind of the story behind it and always draws out spiritual truth out of what he's evaluating or what he's exploring in the story, as well as introducing you to art. And he is similarly to what you were talking about, Carolyn, like he's just an art appreciator. Like he's not
Mm-hmm.
a great visual artist who paints paintings. He's a person who loves art. And he's talked about, I think, a high school art teacher just telling him to like pick an artist
Mm-hmm.
and dive deep on one artist. And that's how you're going to learn to appreciate art.
Yeah.
And
So they'll introduce you to their friends, right? Like
yes,
as you follow
exactly.
that one
I
artist.
love
Yeah.
that. And if any listeners, if you want to go back to the conversation that I had last year with, in our last season with Ned Bustard, we talked a lot about Austin Kleon's book, Steal Like an Artist. And he kind of has that same thing. Climb your family tree of art. Who do you love? And find out who they loved and, you know, who they worked with and that sort of thing. So, Carolyn, your books do that not only in the studying the actual artist and who do they love, but also, and
Yeah,
I just,
basically the idea is all the paintings of one artist are connected by like
that's
a
right.
corridor, like kind of in chronological order. And so you could come out, you could go into Starry Night and come out in any other Van Gogh painting all across the world. But then, yeah, if you're really trying to get to specific locations, it gets really complicated. It was very complicated to plot.
I bet.
There's a chase scene in book two that was like very complicated. And then the other thing I did was make sure all the paintings possessed by the villains are actual stolen paintings,
That's right.
which ended up giving some really cool opportunities, right?
Yeah.
Like the Storm on the Sea of Galilee painting,
Hmm.
which is a crux for book one.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And I think taking your imagination there, like, you know, the world of art theft is wild.
yeah.
And, you know, most middle grade readers have not yet explored how wild the world of art theft is. Um, but you are giving them an opportunity through talking about a painting that's missing. You know, the Storm on the Sea of Galilee, no one has
Mhm.
seen that painting since the 1990s. So for your middle grade reader, like their entire lifetime,
Yeah.
that painting has been in the wind, to quote Russ Ramsey. Um, and like the idea that here's a character who not only gets to see it, but also gets to walk through it or
Yeah.
float through it in that case. And I think the thing I love probably most is the characters. Like you
Mm.
bring to life these characters with real feelings, real,
Mm.
you know, it's like you've raised four kids. Um, but real, you know, these characters feel alive. And I love
Mm.
one of the things I really love about the series, and I have not yet read book three. When we are recording this, it hasn't come out yet. But for the series in book one and book two, you change kind of point of view characters between book one and book two, and then book three, you'll have a new point of view character, someone that
That's
we've
right.
heard. And I would love for you to talk about that transition in the point of view characters. Like, how does that work in telling a story? And then also, just how do you get so deeply into the characters? How do you get to know your characters
Mm.
so that you can do that?
Yeah. So I think the reason I wanted to do that in the first place is because I liked the idea of being able to tell a complete character arc in one book
Mm-hmm.
and not having to try to stretch like I've got a whole story arc for the three books, but each book has its own character arc
Mm-hmm.
for that individual character because I didn't like want to see, like Vincent kind of like change and grow and then like when am I supposed to start him over in the next book? I don't want to do
Right,
that.
right, right, right.
Or find something new. And I thought, well, it's George is such an interesting character. I'd love to dive into her head and tell her story. And then I actually didn't know who would be the third character when I started the series.
Not nerve-wracking at all.
I
Oh,
know, right? But it actually became really clear, as especially during the writing of book two, that the third character needed to be Ravi. This was like definitely his story to tell. And yeah, I don't know, diving into each character, I think what helps me is I have to find that personal connection with the character. So for Vincent, he is someone who's given up on his art. He thinks he's not good enough and kind of struggling with that imposter syndrome. And that is something I really relate to and definitely
Mhm.
related to at his age. So it wasn't
Mhm.
art that I gave up on, but writing. As a kid, in fourth grade, I decided I wanted to be an author and I'd quit writing by sixth grade because I was one of those kids who was like good at school. So, most things seemed kind of easy, but then writing was actually hard. So I thought,
Right.
well, then I guess I'm not good at it.
Right.
My idea petered out. And so I guess I can't do this. So I didn't really actually start writing again until after I had kids. That's
Mhm.
kind of where Vincent came from. And then Georgia similarly struggles with comparison, right? Like
Yeah.
again, comparison's the thief of joy, right? She's
Right.
wanted Vincent to come train with them, but then he's getting all the attention and she kind of feels less than. So
Yeah.
she has to learn that every gift really matters.
Yeah.
And Ravi was a little harder because he's coming from a really different situation than the other
Right.
two. And so he essentially is entering almost as a foster kid into
Mm.
this narrative. And so, I have friends that have fostered and adopted and that is what really helped me with him. Like what would be his mindset and his struggles coming into this situation. So
Yeah. I think one of the things, you read a book, you get to know the character that is your
mm.
point of view character. You really fall in love with them if they are done well. And then you shift and you have this moment of, but hold on, I was I was loving Vincent's story.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
But then you get to dive in with Georgia
Hmm.
and you get to know her and what's going on inside her mind. I think one of the things I love about reading a book over watching a movie or something like that is how much you get into the character's perspective on things. That in a movie, it gets shown to you to some extent, but you're really not going to get inside what the
Yeah.
character's thinking about. And the number
Yeah.
of times that I have watched a movie before reading a book and have finished it and gone, now I want to read the book to find out what they were actually thinking. And so, like with a character like Georgia, to get inside of her perspective and to realize she doesn't see herself the way I saw her. And
Right.
she
Yeah.
doesn't see how great she is.
Hmm.
And so then there's this layer of me rooting for her going,
Mm.
but no, if you could only see what I see, and like how many times, and obviously I'm reading these books as an adult, not as a middle grader. But even as a middle grader, I think back to middle school or I think back
Mm.
to late elementary and like how many of my friends that I could see something in them that they didn't seem to see in themselves.
Mm.
And the gift I could give them of encouraging them in that gift or
Yeah.
encouraging them in that personality trait or
Yeah.
whatever. And, I probably was not great at that as a middle schooler. But as an adult, it's definitely something, particularly with girls 9 to 14 age range, when
Hmm.
I'm interacting with them. That's one of my primary goals is figuring out who they are and just helping them see who they are. I've
That's awesome.
gone off track on, but I'm so excited to get to know Ravi in the same
Yeah.
way and, to see what his perspective on the world is
Hmm.
and see how he's going to learn to grow and thrive.
I love that. I'm so glad that came through in book two. And I mean, the feedback I've gotten so far is a lot of people are telling me book three is their favorite. So, and I think it is
Yay.
because of Ravi. He's a really special character and coming from a really unique circumstance. And so
Yeah. I don't know if he can replace Georgia in my heart, but
I know
uh,
she's a lot of fun. She's a lot of fun.
but I have chambers of my heart. Um, So let's go back to the concept of the books, starting with classic works of art and translating media from visual arts into telling a story.
Yeah. So I feel like, especially in our very fast paced, video driven world, a lot of
Hmm.
times we don't have patience to sit and look at art. I do want these books to help kind of awaken an interest in art in kids. And so one of the ways I try to do that, which is like integral to the story, is when they enter a painting, it comes to life, right? It's no
Yeah.
longer just like this two-dimensional thing. Like when Vincent lands in The Starry Night, the sky is actually swirling, right?
Uh-huh.
And the wind is blowing and there's, it's damp And so just kind of trying to bring each of those pieces to life and make them
Hmm.
real places, give those like sensory experiences that will kind of draw kids in. And yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to do there. So
Hmm.
hopefully that comes through.
So this is it's a different type of art. So there's an
Hmm.
artist named Makoto Fujimura,
Yeah.
who's an American Japanese artist, and he does abstract art. So
Yeah.
it's not going to be, you're not going to see a picture in most of his paintings. Sometimes there's trees, um, but that's about as concrete as he gets. However, the medium that he uses is called Nihonga, and it's all of his pigments are made of precious metals and precious stones, and they're ground up really tiny and then put into a water solution and then painted in these very thin layers. And sometimes they run in different ways that he doesn't expect, and then he has to wait for that layer to dry and paint another layer, etc. He has said about specifically Nihonga art, but I think the truth, works over to other kinds of art as well. But for you to be able to actually take in, you visually, physically be able to take in the extent of one of his paintings, you have to be looking at it for something like 15 minutes
Oh,
before
wow.
your eyes can actually adjust
Hmm.
to see the layers, to see all of the things. And I think that that's such I mean, that is because there are so many layers, because, it's not so much the story that the painting is telling, although sometimes it is that as well. But I think that's such a great truth about art that
Hmm.
if you will let yourself sit with it and let yourself observe and observe longer than you think you should observe, you will notice things and you will
Hmm.
begin to see details that you would have missed if you were just walking past it in a museum feeling bored. And there is a reason why in many art museums there are benches in front of
Hmm.
paintings. So you can sit and
I
observe.
thought those were just for if you got tired, Carrie.
Right.
What?
I mean that too. But but I think that you're giving a kid, not only am I observing layers of paint, I'm also observing a story behind those layers of paint that is alive, that
Yeah.
is the feel of the moisture in the air and,
Yeah.
all of those things. Your books are not this category, but there is a category of middle grade book that have illustrations, like usually pen and ink illustrations throughout them. And I was writing an essay that I did for Wild Things and Castles in the Sky
Mm.
for Square Halo Books about the place that kind of book plays in a reader's development and in kind of
Mm.
the ecosystem of growth as a reader. Because I was one of those readers that I was afraid of big books. I was afraid of books that had a lot of text on a page. And so it really wasn't until I was in fourth grade that I kind of took off on reading. And part of the reason that I took off, part of the reason was we were stuck in or not stuck, we were living in Hong Kong and there were not a
Hmm.
lot of books available to me. So I
Mm.
was stuck reading whatever I
Yeah.
had. But the books that spurred me were the first three Anna Green Gables books because I had seen the CBC
Mm.
miniseries. And so I knew I had pictures in my head.
Yeah.
So there is actually a place for having that image that then the reader can hang on to as they go through the
Mm.
next few pages or the next 15
Hmm.
pages of story, that there's some visual that they can stick in their head. Because some of us don't just come up with the visual in our head. And I do think
Yeah.
while your books don't have illustrations, because you're writing about art,
No, they actually do have
they
illustrations.
do? Okay, wait,
You've
sorry.
only read the audiobooks, I
You're
think,
right. I
right?
have only read
Okay.
the
So
audiobooks.
they do. They're not like every single chapter,
Okay.
but there are about 10 or so illustrations throughout each book.
Okay. Well, never
Yeah.
mind. So they fall in the category. Exactly what I was talking about. Of course, it's a good thing I brought this up. Um, but because you've got these images, and then also the paintings are images that someone can go look at the picture of the painting and carry that in their mind as they go through. Who is the illustrator on your books?
Her name is Vivian Toe. It's
Toe.
Vivian Toe, and it's just T-O. Yeah.
All right.
And she is amazing. She does a ton
Awesome.
of middle grade books, and she just really brought this one to life, and
I love it.
or this whole
Okay,
series.
well,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Vivian, that I didn't. I need to go look at these books. The thing is, I've had them in my hands. Like I've had
Yeah.
physical copies in my hands, but have I flipped through them? So yeah, parents who are listening here, like some of your readers need that developmental step to get to be avid readers. They need that help bridging from seeing visuals to being able to imagine just from the words. And those books that are in that middle grade that have some illustrations or that are playing with art are going to help the
Yeah.
reader grow as a reader and
Yeah.
develop that muscle.
And I'm definitely hoping, like, as kids are reading the book, that they go run to their parents or like, "Can you look up this painting for
Yeah,
me?" I've heard a lot of parents say that they will, like, "I need to see what this actually looks like," because you
exactly.
can only describe so much with words, right? You're
Exactly.
not going to have the exact same picture in your head of what the painting is, but
Yeah.
because it's worth 1,000 words, and I can't put that many words, so
Right. 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 It would just be such a thick book.
it would be so thick.
So, shifting gears, I want to talk also with you about collaboration and support among writers. It's something that we talk about on the Vanderpod regularly because I love it. And I know that one of our mutual friends is Glenn McCarty, the author of The Song of the Stone Tiger, which comes out with Bandersnatch, I think the day after this podcast releases. So go
Ooh.
order it now. But I know you've been friends with Glenn for many years, and you have been not only personal friends, but also writery friends. So I'd love for you to talk about kind of the process of growing as a writer through that and what's sort of come to life for you in that process.
Yeah, I think making friends with other authors has been one of the unexpected joys of
Mm.
being a writer. And so I first met Glenn, I think at a Hutchmoot. We were kind of aware of each other from Story Warren. We were both
Hmm.
writing for that at the time. And yeah, and then in 2020 we ended up in like this what I call a writers support group. It was like this Zoom group that was kind of really a lifeline for me. And that was the same year I was writing Beneath This Rolling Sky, but I hadn't really been pursuing middle grade. I was writing picture books mostly at the time.
Hmm.
And I don't think I would have finished the book if it weren't for the encouragement of that group. It was really amazing. And then Glenn and I exchanged manuscripts one summer. It may have been 2020 or 2021. And the one that I read from him was Song of the Stone Tiger. And he read Beneath This Rolling Sky. So he's actually in the credits for Beneath This Rolling Sky as being my critique partner and giving me some really great feedback and mostly encouragement. So yeah, I've made writer friends. I feel like a lot of different ways, and some
Hmm.
of that is just being willing to put yourself out there or join these communities like Jonathan Rogers, the Habit membership.
Hmm.
Made some great friends in there as well. But yeah, I think it's something that you need as a writer is
Mm.
having that support and encouragement and someone you can talk to who understands like, oh, I just got my fifth rejection letter of the month or whatever.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. Do you feel like the place those writer friends have filled is mostly that encouragement and, linking elbows and moving forward together, or is it also work on your craft?
It's been both, but in some ways, I feel like the encouragement is the more important
Mm.
aspect, or
Hmm.
it has been for me. It's definitely been great to, be able to exchange manuscripts with someone and know that you're getting good feedback. And I think maybe that's more important earlier on as well when you don't know what you're doing as much. It does like spur you on. And I think giving other people feedback is
Yeah,
something that can really grow you as a writer as well. But I think what I value the most is the encouragement.
that's awesome.
Well, I
Uh,
can say as soon as I saw that y'all were publishing Song of the Stone Tiger, I texted Glenn and I was like, you better let me endorse this.
well, thank you.
Because like I said, I had already read it back in, 2020 or
Yeah,
2021.
yeah.
And yeah, I was excited to see it
Well,
finally coming into the
let me
world.
ask you, having read an earlier draft and then read one that was nearly ready for publication, like what sort of changes did you see and what was your perspective on those?
Yeah, so it had been several years since I
Right.
had read it. So I did feel like probably there were smaller changes throughout, but the main part was the climax before had felt kind of messy to me and like didn't quite work. And I had given him some feedback on it. I'm sure you gave him some feedback on it.
Hmm.
And this time when I read it, it was very smooth. And I'm like, okay, yeah, this makes sense now. I get this. And so that was exciting to see. And, I'd always loved the story. He just kind of makes the woods feel magical even when they're regular, right? Like
Hmm.
it's all like an appreciation of the world as it is. And
Yeah.
yeah, I love
Yeah.
that.
I love that a friend has a book that, we as a publishing house have the opportunity to share that book with the world,
Mm,
but that it is such a perfect fit for Bandersnatch. When we were evaluating manuscripts, one of the comments I remember Annie Beth saying in like just a group chat, as we're discussing, well, what about that? What about this? And I remember Annie Beth going, I love that it's set in North Carolina. Is that okay? That part of the reason I love it is it's set in North Carolina and that's where we're from, where we live.
yeah. Yeah.
And Rachel and I were like, yeah, that's kind of part of what we love about it. But it was just such a, because it is, it's obviously
Yeah.
it's a portal world, and
Uh-huh.
you go into this but the mountains of North Carolina are so much a part of the personality
Yes.
of the
Yeah.
book. And I think we were reading it and evaluating it right in the wake of Hurricane Helene having
Oh,
just devastated the
yeah.
mountains. And so being able to say, like, here's this place we love, and it's this place that has just faced major, significant loss.
Mm,
And we have an opportunity to bring light to it in a way that highlights its beauty. And then we've decided like we're going to release it within a week of the 1 year anniversary of Helene. And so,
mm.
so that picture of here is a book that is celebrating this place that's still recovering. Here in North Carolina, we know that.
Yeah.
Anytime you drive, like you see that Helene devastated. But for the
Mm.
rest of the country, it's like, oh yeah, there was
Right.
flooding. I mean, and that's a totally viable response. So if you don't see something, of course you're forgetting about it. But it's just the opportunity we have to bring attention back there again. I'm really excited about. Well, let's move into some popcorn questions, some questions that I have not allowed you to prepare for.
Ooh, feel the pressure.
Feel the pressure, exactly. And I also am realizing in the moment that I didn't like pull these ahead of time. So I'm just coming up with them as we go. So it's true pressure on both of us. So we'll start with something that is very Bandersnatchish, which is we say we publish treasures found off the beaten path. So for you, what is a book that you feel like is a treasure off the beaten path that you love?
Wow, that's hard.
A favorite lesser known book?
Have I told you I'm very bad at thinking on my feet?
Hey, you know what? I'm here for you. I'm going to stretch that muscle.
Okay, okay, okay. Um, okay. So these are ones that I grew up with.
Hmm.
Have you read the Archives of Anthropos series
I
by
haven't.
John White? It's kind of like a Narnia-esque, but takes place from Canada. And yeah, it's been a while since I've read them, but man, I always want to go back to them. I literally went to go show my husband a picture that I could remember from the book, and it was not illustrated because it was that vivid
It
in
was that
my
vivid in your
mind.
mind. That's
So
amazing.
yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna sidebar on that for a moment. Do you visualize books as I mean, I'm guessing from that you do.
So I don't visualize faces,
Okay,
but I do visualize scenes and like movement.
interesting.
But I'm not great at faces in general. I can be with friends that like we all went to elementary school through high school together,
Uh-huh.
and we see someone that we went to high school or middle or elementary school with, and I will not recognize that person.
Okay.
And they will, and I'll be like, there's something wrong with me. But yeah, I'm not the best with faces.
Yeah.
Or someone dyes their hair. I'm like, you
Right.
could be a different person. I don't know.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Your hair's curly
Who
now,
who
not
are you?
straight. I don't know who you are. That
Yeah.
is fascinating. It's so
Yeah.
amazing how, and this goes back to the illustrations in a book, like how the human brain visualizes
Mm-hmm.
and how it does it differently, and
Yeah.
everybody's is different.
Yeah.
That is such a fascinating because I
Yeah. Like
basic
even my characters, like they didn't have faces, right?
my
Like
characters never had
I
faces
know
either.
Uncle Leo had a bushy white mustache, but I don't know what
Hmm.
his face looked like. I don't
Right.
know.
Yep. No, I hear you. I absolutely hear you. I actually, my first book, King's Messenger, when I sat down with the illustrator to talk about what to illustrate,
Mm-hmm.
he's like, "Well, tell me what your characters look like." And I was like, I don't know." And I was like, "I can tell you about them."
Uh-huh.
And what was amazing was like I described each character
Uh-huh.
and kind of their personality and their arrogance or lack of, or, whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
he came back with pictures that I was like, "Yeah, absolutely. That's what they look like."
Yeah.
So I think a good illustrator can do that.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. You have been raising artistic kids. What are
Mm.
books that you have loved to share with your kids?
I think our top one is the Wing Feather Saga. We've
Mm.
we've done it as a read aloud multiple times. My husband read it aloud when the kids were younger, and then I read it aloud again to the younger two because they were not really old enough to pick up on it when we first read it.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely the Green Ember series,
Mm-hmm.
Little House on the Prairie. When my oldest was little, we like
Mm-hmm.
read through those for hours and hours while her brother was napping. Yeah, those are some
I
of our
love that.
favorites. Yeah.
Feeding people good stories.
Hmm.
So, do you have a favorite word?
A favorite word. Interesting. I have like an unfavorite word.
Oh, tell me your unfavorite word.
Moist. I don't like
Oh,
that
you're one
one.
of those. All right. Okay, here's a
Goodness. I
question
don't
on
know if I
moist
have a favorite
before
word.
we go further
Okay.
in favorite.
Hmm.
Do you have the same reaction to hoist?
No.
Okay. I've always been curious. Like, it's the part of that that's the problem is the moi.
Yeah. I think it also has the meaning in there too. Like, and I
Okay.
don't like it. It's
Okay.
just I don't know. It feels gross. Okay, I don't have a favorite word, but my son has a favorite word. He decided he really liked the word panache a few years ago.
That's amazing.
He has a giant vocabulary and he says words that I don't know all the time, so I don't
I like it. I like it.
know.
I I now want to, so I've decided as a general rule, I would say I am not a poet. And Rachel's always like, "You can just play with words." And I'm like, not really great at that. But I discovered this past spring that I do like playing with word etymology. And
Oh.
so if I can pull together words and play with their meanings as well and
Mm.
like where they came from and words that are
Hmm.
related, but I'm like I feel like that's a pretty narrow kind of poetry is etymological wordplay poetry. So
You never
I've
know. You
currently
start a new
written
form.
one, but
Nice.
you've just given me an idea for a second with
Perfect.
panache and ganache, and I now need to figure out if they are related and go from there.
And if not, to invent their secret history of
Exactly,
being related. Yeah.
exactly. Okay, and now we'll go into your field of semi-expertise. Do you have a favorite painting?
Yes. And I always tell people like you probably already know what it is because it's Starry Night. That's why the first book features on that one. And I have gotten to see it in person twice.
Awesome.
I do remember the first time I saw it in person, I was in college and I
Hmm.
was really shocked that it was so small. It was like a third of the size of my Starry Night poster
Uh-huh.
on my wall in college. So, but yeah, it is a very, very beautiful, very powerful painting. So yeah, Van Gogh is definitely my personal favorite.
I love that. Do you know where it is now?
Well, I don't know exactly right now, but it's
Right.
it's supposed to be at the MoMA in New York.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't
But
think
I've
I've
never
ever.
seen it at the MoMA. I've only seen it in LA and I've seen it at the Met in New York.
Okay.
So,
So you've seen it when it's loaned away.
yes. So I think it is probably often loaned away.
Probably. I feel like that one probably
Yeah.
gets some good
Yeah.
traffic. All right. That is probably the extent of my popcorn questions for
Oh,
you.
I'm very relieved
You
because
have
I'm
you
not
have
good at these.
passed the test, and I love it. Well, Carolyn, it has been a delight to talk with you today. And everybody go find the Restorationists series. If you've already read books 1 and 2, book 3 is ready for you.
Yay.
And if you haven't, guess what? You get a whole series to read. And
You get to
that's
binge
awesome.
it.
Exactly. You get to binge a series.
Yeah.
It's been so fun talking to you.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me on, Carrie.
Well, We're going to wrap it up here today, but I just want our listeners to be thinking about their wanderings, perhaps in art museums where they might find bookish treasures as they wander off the beaten path. Thanks for listening in to our conversation today on the Banderpod. We hope you'll check out our full catalog at bandersnatchbooks.com. The Banderpod is produced by Rachel S. Donahue, A.B. Donahue, and Carolyn Claire Gibbons. Audio engineering by S.D.G. Morgan. Artwork by Evelyn Warnamendi. Many thanks to our friend Chris Slayton of Son of Laughter for our theme song, Cricket in a Jar. Find links and more in the show notes.